Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Real Talk with America's Supermom. I am excited to have my next guest. We have actually been on each other's platforms,
Mhm.
sharing so many different insightful topics related to women and using our voices and just a number of things that I'm sure we'll dive into during the interview. But before we get started with all that, I want to give Mary Ann the opportunity to introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Lachelle. I am so happy to be with you again. It's been a while, and I
Yes.
am looking forward to our conversation. I'm Mary Ann Pack, and I
Mhm,
am a spiritual medium, an author,
mhm.
publisher, and a joy advocate. And I love sharing. My mission is to promote and spread more love and joy around the
Mhm.
world. So when I do that through podcasting and through authoring books and helping others publish their works.
Mhm.
So that's who I am, and I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, I am so glad that you're here. And I love the fact that you mentioned you're a joy advocate.
Mhm.
And before we get into repurposing content and some of the other topics that we're going to discuss, when you talk about being a joy advocate, explain that because there's a lot of people, especially now, as we're recording this, it is actually September and it's National Suicide
Mm.
Prevention Month. And so there's a lot of people dealing with this aftermath of a global pandemic or just a number of things. Here yesterday we lost Queen Elizabeth II. So there's a lot of things that people might not feel so joyful about. So talk to us about how you even came up with this particular term and how we can start having more joy.
Absolutely. I believe that we are all, as an extension of source of God, that God spark within us is
Mhm.
that joy. And
Mm.
when we can tap into who we really are as love and joy embodied in this physical form, there's always space for joy because
Mm.
our inner being is always calling us forward to receive more joy, the who we really are. So there's when I chose that as a title a couple years ago or so, I thought, oh, who am I to say that I'm a joy advocate? But then I thought, wait, we all are joy advocates.
Mhm.
I just happened to put it down on paper.
I love that. I love that.
So,
And I think we
yeah.
need that reminder because a lot of times we allow the news or current
Yes.
circumstances to really dampen that joy. And, that begins to be the master of a lot
Mhm.
of our days. The master is
Yeah.
whatever we focus on, it just continues to grow, whether it's the good or the bad. So I love that you make it a point to be intentional with joy.
Yeah. And I
Mhm.
wrote a blog post not terribly long ago, and I think it was entitled "My Imperfect Joy Advocacy." It was talking
Mm.
about how I'm not perfect at this, but
Mhm.
that's human. That's to be human.
Mhm.
So I can still claim that, even though I'm not perfect at it. I am an imperfect joy advocate. So it's not that I'm always flying up here on the high flying, the mountaintops. I
Mhm.
crash in the valleys sometimes, but
Mhm.
we have to have both. That's a balance. But it's just that I'm intentionally moving toward who I really am on the inside and want to express
Mhm.
that and live that more than um, you know, our problems.
I love that. And I think that is something that's very overlooked.
Yeah.
We hear people's success stories, we see them in
Mhm.
the moment of whatever that highlight reel is. But I love how you're bringing this up because it's a matter of what you want to show up as being, the intentionality behind it all. And,
Absolutely.
I was telling my kids one day about people just don't grow up and say, oh, I want to be a drug dealer or I want to have a child without
That's
being
right.
married or some of these things that we fall into because it starts with our intention. right? If we don't have an intention, we can end up in some crazy places because
Mhm.
we allow that to direct us rather than what we really want. So I love that you shared that. That's a
Mhm.
gem right there. Okay. So let's talk about the repurposing of content. So you've mentioned that you have even written a book that has been on repurpose content. And so I think a lot of people kind of get overwhelmed thinking, oh my gosh, a book, they think it's this long process sitting at a computer and they just don't know what to write. They talk about writer's block and all these different things. So I am excited to get into this topic and sharing some tips that can help a lot of people out there get their word and information out.
Yeah. Yes, writing a book does not have to be a long, drawn out process. And we don't have to have 500-page books to make an
Mhm.
impact on our world.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be that many words. It's not, you don't have to come up with 100,000 words. 16, 20, 30,000 words is a book. And
Mhm.
the one that we're talking about today is this one. It's called Repurpose and Publish. It's a planner that I
Mhm.
created with Elizabeth Hill of Greenheart Living Press. And this actually was born out of a podcast. We had such a good conversation about talking about how we as publishers help people find content to use. And so I wrote this whole guide, this planner,
Mm.
and it's in a workbook kind of type format so that
Mhm.
as I ask you questions to go find where content may be hiding, those hidden gems of content, um, it allows you to find those things that you may not have even thought about using for content for a book. This
Mhm.
book we had the podcast in May, middle of May. This was already up and published in less than a month.
Wow.
That's how quickly content can come together. And when I wanted to write this book, I wanted to ask questions. Why do you want to write it? Why is it calling you now? What is
Mhm.
coming through? What do you love to talk about? What are you helping people overcome or transform through? What are your
Mm.
services? What are your, um, uh, and how do you promote it? Do you do videos? Do you have a
Mhm.
course? You write emails, obviously.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
know some of those emails from people are amazing, inspirational, or teaching moments, tips, tricks, techniques, methods, apps that are great, all to help us grow and expand. And all these little hidden gems are there for your book.
Love that. I think that is so key. And, as you mentioned, all these different vehicles,
Mhm.
it reminds us that we're already doing what
Yes.
we're writing about. I
Yes.
think a lot of people just kind of have this disconnect of thinking, okay, let me take this separate position of being an author, and they disconnect from what they're already doing, which makes it even more overwhelming and
Mhm.
challenging. So talk to us about where do you begin? So a lot of people say, oh, you've got podcasts, you've got, your Facebook live videos, or,
Yes.
you have stuff in your community. What would you recommend as a first step for people to get that book done, in a short time?
Yeah. For one thing, get this planner, Repurpose and Publish Planner, because it walks you through and it helps you remember, where do I have really good content that got really good engagement?
Mhm.
And so I'm helping you find those places and maybe give you some ideas of things you didn't even think about. Um, like this, my first book is We Are Joy, Reawaken Your Joy. This was all this was all blog posts.
Mm.
I took 12 of my blog posts on the subject of joy and how to get into joy when you're just not feeling it. and I just tweaked them a little bit and, you know, was able to put them together like that because I had over 200 at the time that I did this book this past year, early this year. I had over 200 blogs that I had already written. And so
Mm,
I downloaded them onto one document so that I could start putting them into categories, topics.
mm,
And that helped. Then now I have, not only do I have this book, I have other topics that I write about that will give me material for other books. And then for me myself, I don't like to just produce books that give information and more
mhm,
knowledge. We need integration. So I always, with every lesson or every chapter, I like to include integrative questions or exercises or things that are, um, you know, reflective inward so that
mhm,
people are actually growing as they use the
mhm.
book.
I love that. So it's allowing you to engage with the reader. I
Oh,
think that's so
absolutely.
important because, a lot of times we talk about, oh my gosh, we're doing this study on LinkedIn with the compound effect. And
Mhm.
we have a lot of these, well-known books that are just staples to the industry of self-development. But then, where's the action plan? A lot of
Yeah.
times, now, this book does have things, where you have that summary, you think about what you're going to do. But I love how you mention that
Yeah.
because sometimes as an author, we think about just getting that idea out there and that's enough. But you want to be able to make it practical where
Yes.
people can actually grow, is what you said. So
Oh,
that's
yes.
amazing.
Yeah, because each person, as they read this, since it's 12 lessons, and
Mm-hmm.
there's several integrative exercises after each lesson, that somebody could use this as a 3-month coaching program on their own.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so they'd be coaching with me, but through the book.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
they could take one lesson a week, you know, so that's an idea. You know, another one is my second book, which I co-authored with April Goff Brown, and it's about sacred crystals. And we did it the same way. We still went through and talked about different subjects and topics around crystals and how to use them, but we also put integrative questions with it. And then I turned it into an actual workbook. So somebody would have all their
Mm-hmm.
material right there, ready to use and answer the questions and do the work. You know, so there's writing space and all the questions it's exactly this book, except expanded into a workbook. So
I
if
love
you
that.
have a course, you know, if you write a book like this, you have material for a course for them to follow you in. And they have all their notes right there at their fingertips every time they come to class.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
so good because we don't really talk about a lot of workbooks and
Yeah. Mhm.
everybody does kind of talk about a course, but we have the challenges that a lot of people do for certain times to get
Right.
us out there doing a lot of the course objectives. But I love how you talk about a workbook. Now, so when you have the workbook, how does the pricing go for something like that? For somebody to get an idea? Because to me, it's even just beneficial sometimes having that available if people are not able to
Yeah.
actually go one-on-one or in a group setting with you as a coach.
Yes. Are you asking like what is the retail prices
Yeah.
of these?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of a
This
workbook.
one, this one is a little bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I have it priced on Amazon at 19.99.
Mm.
And just to give you an idea, let me see. This is about 162 pages.
Mm.
So, you know, because you're allowing space for the writing, and you do
Mm-hmm.
have to have, it's just over 50 pages to be able to have your spine,
Mm. Okay.
with your title,
Mm-hmm.
and your text on it. This is the repurpose and publish. I think
Mm-hmm.
I have it priced at maybe 14.95.
Okay.
I think so
Mm-hmm.
because it is a smaller book and it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't require as much to print it. The printing costs are
Mm.
not as high. And
Mm-hmm.
this one's only like, it's like 52, 53 pages.
Okay.
But
Okay.
see, this one is still small enough. I couldn't get my spine printed.
I see.
So you have to
Mm-hmm.
consider, is that important to you? You have to
Mm-hmm.
make that spine, or if that's not, then, go with what, again, there's still plenty of room for people to answer the questions and find their material in this book.
I love that. I
Um,
love that.
so I'm just so, I really want to produce books that are integrative,
Mm-hmm.
that there's a purpose. They're not just more knowledge. You stick it on the shelf and you never touch it again. This
Right.
is almost like journaling right there,
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
your book. And the fun thing is that when people go through these books as a workbook form, you have that to go look back on and watch your growth.
Yes.
And that is so much fun because you may not take up all the space. And then a year later, you come back and go, I want to go through this book again.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
so you
love
start
that.
writing in it for the next year.
Mm-hmm. I
Mhm.
love that. And I think it's the journey is what you're able to
Yes.
capture.
Yes.
And that's the thing that, a lot of people miss that. And that journey is so inspiring.
Yes.
It's like someone who starts their content talking about, oh my gosh, I'm going on this weight loss journey, and they're
Mhm.
documenting that process. So I love how you're able to kind of wrap this into your content and
Yes.
being able to serve others in the process. So that's amazing.
Right.
Um, what this has just been great conversation, and I know that time just flies. I tell you, it's amazing when you're getting that conversation about something that you're passionate about, being able to share your lessons. What
Mhm.
are some key topics maybe that you would kind of direct people to kind of begin that reflection on things that they could share with other people? Because I think I was on a podcast interview some time ago, and I was like, I don't even know, what I overlook sometimes because I do it all the time.
Right.
I don't recognize might be valuable for other people. And so I know there's a lot of people in that space. They're thinking about these grandiose topics
Mhm.
sometimes that they want to share. But what are some things that you have found that people are just really amazed, or it's so simple for them to implement when it comes to having a book or a workbook that they can repurpose?
Yeah. If Yeah, again, we all seem to produce so much content
Mm-hmm.
that, going back and looking at some of the things that, again, had good engagement or
Mm-hmm.
maybe stirred up feelings or questions in people, it may have been a little controversial, so it stirred up
Mm-hmm.
some other feelings, and there was a pretty hefty conversation going on around it. But
Mm-hmm.
really look towards what you're already doing. Where are those moments of transformation for your people?
Mm-hmm.
Um, whether it's, in coaching, in life or business coaching, or, families, or, who do you help? Who
Mm-hmm.
are your clients? Who do you help, and how do you help them? When we start looking for things like that, we start going, oh, yeah, I remember writing an email on that, or I remember writing a blog post on that. And if your love is you're serving, entrepreneurs and helping them grow their business, talk about what you talk about. Maybe you do marketing. Maybe you have a really good ideas around how to market or when to market, or that you have a questionnaire about these are great email, ideas for a marketing program. For as you put out emails when they sign up for something free, and you have that string of emails that we love to send out
Mhm,
to
mhm.
nurture, and because all of those nurturings that you're doing is worthy of your book.
Mm,
You
love
know,
that.
when you start to think about it, where we have those, again, it's these hidden treasure trove that we
Mhm.
have. We just think, oh, that's not enough for a book, but it is because you're not doing a 500-page dissertation.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. That's powerful. That is definitely some great advice. So this
Mhm.
has just been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Tell everybody the best way for them to get a hold of you.
Absolutely. My website for all the books and the publishing is wearejoybooks.com. And if you'll look on the front page, of course, take time to look around. But if you look on the front page and scroll down, there's a bookshelf and you can click through the different books. There's also a books tab and things like that.
Mhm.
But you'll find this repurpose and publish planner. You'll find my other books. You'll find other things that I've published for other people. So
Mm,
and one other idea I wanted to let you know, I there is ghostwriting opportunities
mm,
too,
mhm,
because I do ghostwriting for authors that just don't have the time to write a chapter in an anthology or, something that they need. So I interview them for an hour and then I can pull out from that about a 2200 page, I'm sorry, 2200 word um, chapter or document or article.
mm,
Because even in this book, this was produced through Elizabeth Hill's Greenheart Publishing. That I work with her and help her do edits and formatting and things like that. So this was from the Hobble Foundation, and they are TBI survivors, traumatic brain injuries. Well, two of the gentlemen in this book could not, with their TBIs, they could not write their chapter. So I just interviewed them and I wrote their chapter for them. That's ghostwriting. So there
mm,
are so many ways to come up with content and to be able to produce this good in the world that we are here to do.
I love that. That is amazing. So that great, great tip. I think that is definitely something that a lot of people overlook. This
Yeah.
has been so informative, inspirational. I mean, the list goes on and on. So, what final thoughts would you like to leave with the audience today?
Oh, please, if you feel a book being called through you, and they are called through us because our inner spirit, our inner soul is receiving the message from the call from everyone else. Those who need
Mhm.
your message are calling you, are calling your spirit. And that's why you're feeling this tug, this urgency to do something, to get your book out there. And please, be obedient to that and start, looking at where you can produce a book. And I would say, I love to say that, let's write the world happy every
Amen.
one word at a time. So
I,
let's write the world happy one world at a time, one word at a time.
I love that. That is so awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Marianne, for being
Absolutely.
here. I always love your conversations and just this charge for it's all to realize that we all have value. There is
Hmm.
something that we could do even today that can help us to move forward with writing
Absolutely.
the world better. So, thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you have any
Hmm.
questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I encourage you to reach out to Mary because just having a conversation, I'm over here with lots of notes, okay, for things that I'm getting from this conversation. So I'm sure that this has been beneficial for you as well. And if you find that it is beneficial, share it with someone. It doesn't cost anything to share this information with other people in your network, clients, or whoever that you feel might be able to benefit from our conversation today. So, again, we thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye bye.